Welcome to Stamps Old World UK. Today, we are going on an exciting journey through philately, the world of old postage stamps, and we will talk about how the market value of stamps is determined today in United States dollars. Many collectors wonder why certain stamps are worth very little while others can be valued at hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The truth is that a stamp's value depends on a mix of rarity, condition, historical importance, demand, and authenticity. Even a small stamp, like the 1-cent postage due stamp you are seeing, can carry a story that adds to its worth. Let us begin by talking about condition. In the stamp market, condition is everything. A perfectly preserved stamp with no tears, no fading, and clean perforations can be worth many times more than a damaged version of the same stamp. Collectors look very closely at tiny details such as whether the gum on the back is original and unhinged, or whether a stamp has been used or remains mint. A mint stamp, one that has never been placed on an envelope, generally carries a higher market value. But interestingly, some rare stamps used on envelopes may be more valuable than mint ones if they tell a historical story through the cancellation mark. Next, we move to rarity. A stamp might be old, but age alone does not make it valuable. Millions of stamps were printed in the 19th and early 20th centuries, and many still exist in good condition. But if a stamp had a limited printing errors, or was discontinued quickly, it can become far more valuable. For example, a 1-cent postage due stamp from the early 1900s in a common printing might be valued today anywhere from just a few dollars to maybe a modest price depending on condition. However, a rare variation with a color error, a printing misalignment, or a rare cancellation mark could reach a much higher value. In today's market, these variations could sometimes range from tens of dollars to potentially hundreds depending on collector interest. Historical significance is another critical factor in determining price in the current market. Stamps serve as physical pieces of history. They represent countries, postal systems, political changes, and even economic struggles. A stamp issued during wartime, a reform period, or a monarchy transition can attract collectors who are passionate about history. In this case, even a low-denomination stamp like a 1-cent stamp can grow in value when it reflects something unique about a nation's cultural or political past. In the modern market, stamps connected to famous events or limited postal changes may command strong prices from collectors willing to spend more for a story they can preserve. Now let us talk about demand. A stamp can be rare and well-preserved, but if collectors are not actively seeking it, the price may remain low. The market is driven by interest. Some stamps may rise in value simply because a group of collectors begins to focus on a particular era or country. A 1-cent postage due stamp from the United States may become more popular depending on how many collectors specialize in postage due issues or early American postal history. Today, that demand can influence the value in dollars, sometimes causing the price to slowly rise over time or remain steady for years. Authenticity is the final key factor. Forged stamps exist, and serious collectors are careful. Stamps with certificates from recognized experts often sell for far more than unverified stamps. If a stamp looks rare but has no verification, the price may be much lower. Meanwhile, a verified rare stamp can sell for impressive amounts in today's market. The presence of authentication can make a difference of many dollars, sometimes hundreds or more depending on rarity. With all these factors combined, how do we look at the 1-cent postage due stamp in today's collector market? Most common versions may range from very low collectible value to a modest value when sold individually. But there are special cases, such as rare printing shades, unusual cancellations, or unique historical usage on envelopes that may attract collectors willing to pay more in dollars today. These prices are not fixed because the stamp market constantly changes based on collector trends. As a result, some 1-cent postage due stamps may sell for just a few dollars, while selected rare examples in perfect condition might reach higher values. The exact value depends on appraisal, certification, and the passion of interested buyers. Collectors should always remember that the true value of a stamp is not only measured in money. A stamp carries history, art, and culture. Some collectors treasure stamps for the stories they tell rather than the prices they bring. Whether worth a single dollar or several $100s, every stamp adds something special to a collection. It becomes a doorway into the past. Next up, the stamp market values them today in United States dollars. In this episode, we're taking a closer look at a striking and bold design from United States postal history, the 5-cent postage due stamp. With its deep red color, artistic curves, and commanding number that sits proudly at its center, this stamp has been admired by collectors for decades. But its beauty is only one part of its story. The true interest lies in how this stamp was used, what it represented, and how the market determines its value today. Postage due stamps were not like normal postage stamps. They were issued by the Postal Service to collect unpaid fees from mail that arrived without enough postage. In other words, these stamps represented a penalty. When someone mailed a letter without paying the full price, the receiver had to pay the difference, and the Postal Service used a postage due stamp to show the amount owed. This makes the 5-cent postage due stamp not just a piece of art, but a symbol of how strict and organized postal systems were in the past. They ensured that every letter was accounted for and every fee collected. When we examine this 5-cent stamp from a collector's perspective today, value depends not just on age, but on how well it represents postal history. Many collectors are fascinated by postage due stamps because they were used differently than ordinary mail stamps. A normal stamp may have traveled across countries, while a postage due stamp was applied specifically as a fee indicator. That difference gives it a unique purpose, which makes it more interesting than a typical 5-cent postage stamp in the modern market. As always, condition plays a major role in determining value. Perfect perforations, original color intensity, and a clean surface make a big difference. Many examples of the 5-cent postage due stamp have dark cancellations and smudges because they were heavily used. A lightly canceled version or an unused mint version with full gum can be valued much higher today. Even a used stamp can be valuable if the cancellation mark is neat, readable, and not damaging the beauty of the design. Serious collectors look closely at the fine red engravings because clarity tells them how well the stamp has been preserved. Rarity also affects value. Some printings of the 5-cent postage due stamp were produced in large quantities, while others were printed in smaller batches or changed in style over the years. Variations in color tones, paper types, and printing details can create rare subtypes that collectors actively search for. A rare printing or a variety with a genuine error has the potential to increase the value of the 5-cent postage due stamp to much higher market ranges today in dollars, depending on certification and demand. Speaking of demand, the market value of this stamp is guided strongly by collector interest. In recent years, more collectors have begun focusing on postage due series because they tell a different side of postal history. Instead of celebrating communication, they represent payment and accountability, which actually gives them a powerful historical voice. That growing interest can raise market value as more people compete for the best preserved examples. As demand increases, the value in dollars for well-preserved stamps may gradually rise as well. One fascinating aspect that can greatly increase value is postal usage on a full envelope or parcel piece. If a 5-cent postage due stamp is attached on original mail showing exactly how the penalty was charged, with clear markings and postal routes, the entire item can be significantly more valuable than the stamp alone. Collectors love full history and not just individual pieces. Such postal artifacts can sell at much higher market prices because they offer a complete story. Another major factor is authenticity. Expert certification can drastically change how the market values a stamp today. Because printing variations and shade differences exist, collectors may seek verification of rare types. A certified rare variety of the 5-cent postage due stamp could be valued much higher in today's market. Without certification, even a stamp that appears rare may struggle to reach its full potential price today in dollars, depending on certification and demand. So when we look at today's market value in United States dollars, the 5-cent postage due stamp has a very wide range, depending on condition, printing, cancellation, demand, and certification. Common examples may sell for a smaller amount, while rarer versions, especially mint or error types, may sell for significantly more. In some cases, collectors may pay much higher prices for extraordinary examples that tell a strong postal story. In the end, the 5-cent postage due stamp is more than just an old postal fee label. It is a historical symbol of how the mail system operated with precision and responsibility. Whether worth a few dollars or a much higher amount in today's market, each stamp represents a different journey. It shows how even forgotten mistakes and unpaid fees left a footprint in postal history.
Next up, the 10-cent postage due stamp. This stamp, deep in its rich crimson tones, stands out immediately because of its large oval center design and striking typography. Collectors recognize this stamp not only for its beauty, but for the important role it played in enforcing the rules of the postal system more than a century ago. Unlike regular stamps that paid for mail to be sent, postage due stamps represented a penalty, a charge that had to be collected because someone failed to pay the correct amount of postage. The 10 cents denomination, in particular, signaled a significant underpayment, making this stamp a mark of accountability within the postal world. To understand why collectors value this stamp today, we must first appreciate the historical purpose behind postage due stamps. In the early days of mail services, mistakes were easy to make. People often underestimated the cost of sending their letters, packages, or business correspondence. When mail arrived at its destination with insufficient payment, the person receiving it had to pay what was owed. Instead of writing a note or stamping a cancellation mark, postal workers affixed postage due stamps like this 10 cents denomination to show exactly how much money was required. It was an official visual invoice attached to the mail. This gives the 10 cents postage due stamp a unique historical meaning because it represented real transactions and the enforcement of postal laws. In today's market, collectors look for several key qualities when determining the value of a 10 cents postage due stamp in United States dollars. One of the most important qualities is condition. A well-centered stamp with strong perforations, deep color, and no thinning or tears will naturally be valued more highly. Many stamps of this denomination exist with heavy cancellations, stains, or fading due to their repeated use in postal offices. That means that a clean and well-preserved example becomes more desirable. A mint version with its original gum untouched can be especially attractive to collectors and can bring in a much higher price. Another factor that influences the value of this stamp today is rarity among its variations. Postage due stamps were printed in multiple issues, and sometimes with changes in paper, shade, and design details. Certain printings are more common, while others are scarce. A rare printing or unusual shade variation of the 10 cent stamp can dramatically increase market interest and value. Collectors may pay far more in dollars for such variations, especially if the stamp is supported by proper expert certification. Errors are another fascination. A misprint, a color shift, or an uncommon perforation can elevate this stamp from moderately priced to significantly valuable in the modern collector market. We must also consider postal history usage. When a 10-cent postage due stamp is found on a complete envelope or mailing label, it transforms from a single collectible item into a historical document. To collectors, this tells a whole story. It shows the original sender, the route, the date, and the penalty applied by the postal system. These complete artifacts of communication can be valued far higher than a loose stamp. The presence of a clearly readable cancellation or postal marking adds even more interest and therefore affects the current market value. Demand is another major factor influencing pricing today. In recent years, more collectors have begun to appreciate postage due stamps because they reveal an interesting side of postal history, one focused not on travel and communication, but on rules, fees, and enforcement. The 10-cent postage due stamp stands out among these because of its higher value. This represents a significant penalty amount compared to the lower 1-cent or 5-cent issues. As collector interest continues to grow, stamps like this become more competitive in auctions and private sales, helping their value rise gradually in the current market. Authenticity and certification also play a major role today. With variations and historical complexity, collectors prefer stamps that have been verified by recognized philatelic authorities. A certified rare variety of the 10-cent postage due stamp can command significantly more money than an uncertified version, even if they look similar to the untrained eye. Expert documentation offers confidence, and confidence drives market value. So how do we summarize the market value of the 10-cent postage due stamp in today's world of collectors and auctions? Depending on condition, rarity, postal usage, demand, and certification, its price can vary greatly. Common but lightly used examples may be modestly priced, while mint, rare, or historically significant varieties may rise to much higher valuations in United States dollars. The market does not assign one fixed value, because this stamp is not simply a decorative piece. It is a document of postal enforcement, a fine example of engraving, and a symbol of a postal era where every detail mattered. Thank you for joining us here on Stamps Old World UK as we explore the hidden value inside one of the most striking pieces of American postage due history. If you enjoy learning about stamps, their history, and how they are valued in today's market, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. More fascinating discoveries await in the tiny world of philately, where every stamp tells a story.